Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Mindset Mentoring for Athletes, Families, and Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Coach Chuck. This show is about exploring how mindset shapes performance, character, and long-term resilience, not just in competition, but in life. Because what happens in sports rarely stays in sports. It carries home, it carries into relationships, it carries into leadership. And today's conversation is focused, practical, and deeply relevant for parents, coaches, and anyone shaping young athletes. So stay tuned as we will be back with that conversation. Parents today are carrying a weight that most generations never even had to name. Anxiety is rising, depression is rising, and teen suicide is now one of the leading causes of death amongst young people. And here's what rarely gets said out loud. Parents, you struggle too. You're trying to lead your family in a world that's changed faster than anyone prepares you for, and you love your kids deeply, yet sometimes wonder if what worked for you is enough for them. I'm Coach Chuck Barnhart, and I spent nearly 40 years as an educator and mindset mentor, and I've watched this shift up close. I've also lived it as a father of 4 children. My son Billy and I are launching a family mentorship because transformation doesn't happen in isolation. Teens don't need fixing. Families need leadership, language, and tools that bring them back together. This mentorship is designed for parents and teens walking the journey together, guided by experience, faith, and practical mindset training. And if you're part of the senior generation, a grandparent, a mentor, coach, or trusted voice, I want to ask something of you. Please consider sharing this with the families you know. Sometimes the invitation carries more weight when it comes from someone they trust. And somewhere out there is a family that needs to hear the message. This isn't for everyone, but for the right families, it changes everything. You can learn more by going to thechampionsmindsetmentorship.com.
When it comes to developing the next generation of athletes, few bring the passion, experience, and heart of Coach Bucket Benzer. With 3 years of professional baseball under his belt in close collaboration with Major League Baseball organizers, Coach Bucket has built deep roots in the game, on and off the field. As the founder of Fundamental Baseball, a nonprofit dedicated to athlete development, he's mentored countless young players through a holistic approach to training, character, and competition. He's led recruiting efforts for college-bound athletes through legendary athletes. But what truly sets him apart? His belief in the mental side of the game. Through his work with renowned performance coach Alan Yeager, Coach Bucket empowers athletes to build mindset strength as much as muscle. From Little League to the pros, Coach Bucket Benzer is helping athletes play the game and live life with purpose, grit, and heart.
Welcome back. And returning to our show is Coach Paul Bucket Benzer. With more than 50 years of coaching baseball, Coach Benzer has spent a lifetime shaping young athletes, not just as players, but as people. His book, The Ride Home, What Kids Remember Most from Youth Sports, distills decades of experience into one central truth. The most important moments in youth sports often happen after the game is over. In this conversation, we focus specifically on the lessons from his book, failure, success, team culture, the parent-coach partnership, and the conversations that happen in the car ride home. Coach Benzer brings wisdom earned from 5 decades on the diamond, and today we explore how to make sure youth sports build confidence, character, and resilience that lasts well beyond that final inning. Let's welcome Coach Bucket to the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Chuck. Good morning to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show. And, I enjoyed your book. It's got so much wisdom in it, so many things that need to be said. And you and I have had conversations before about the importance and value of youth sports and when it's done well and done right, uh, the lessons really help to shape character and shape young adults. So let me begin. First of all, for those who haven't seen all my episodes and haven't seen the other one with you, why don't you just give us a little bit about you and your background, and then we can kind of jump into a conversation about the book and how it all came to be and all those things.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chuck. Real quick, I'm 75 and I put in 50 years of baseball life learning lessons. Got to travel lots of parts of the world, different parts, different countries, looking at players, scouting, trying to find out where the different chemistry comes from, the cultures. And over that time, I've just observed so many different things about how kids are being developed. And it really, really, I've been journaling for about 13 years. And I was telling people, I'm writing a book, I'm writing a book. And my wife said, "You're not writing a book because you haven't written it." So I put a paper, put everything together and tried to put something in place for parents and coaches to give them some guidelines, just guidelines on what works and what I've seen doesn't work. And it's been a really fun experience because I'm really sensitive to young youth athletes. So I'm talking about kids, that are right up to high school. I mean, I've worked with all kinds of other levels, major league players, but where my passion has been is watching the youth grow into the game. And as you well know, travel ball has just exploded. It's all over the country. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and there's a certain chemistry that I've seen that's not really working. I've seen so many kids quit. I've seen so many kids get burnt out. I've seen parents, in T-ball games getting thrown out of games, coaches getting thrown out of games, and I don't think they realize that the message that they're sending to the players, the kids may not react at that moment, but long term, it'll have an effect on them. And I'll give you a quick example of what I've seen with over a handful of kids that were um, brought up under a very high pressure, performance based team concept. And as their self-esteem kept getting pushed down because they were told that they fail, they were being, humiliated in front of other players. What I've learned that later on in life, when they get to be 16, 17, and 18, and they're no longer playing, the pain and the frustration of their confidence and self-esteem has been damaged at a younger age. They migrate to other things. And I'm serious, there are other things that are not healthy, alcohol, drugs, because that suppresses that feeling and gives them a place to escape. And that leads to more problems. And that's because of what happened at the youth level. It can be one or two words that can really influence or crush a young man's self-esteem and his confidence. And it may not show up till later on in life. And that's what I'm trying to prevent is, this is it's just a game. And people ask me all the time, you know, what are the odds of my son playing Major League Baseball? And I have to be honest with them. It's less than, it's less than 1%, 750 guys in Major League Baseball, and we have 30 million kids playing around the country. But the biggest thing they can learn is that through that game and through being part of a team, they can really build, you can really end up having 100% success in their character and how they become a great young man and how they can go on through life and be an entrepreneur. Uh, they can, the dream of being in baseball is still there, but the odds are very, very slim. And that doesn't mean you don't dream it. I mean, every kid in the world is dreaming to be a Yankee or a Dodger, whatever their choice is. But the reality is that very, very slim chance of them making it. So what I push the most is the development, not how many trophies, not how many tournaments you've been to, but how are you being developed both as physically and mentally and emotionally, and how that's going to affect you later on in life. So that's the whole purpose behind what I'm doing here and trying to. This book is a nonprofit. I'm not here to make money. I've probably given more copies away than I've sold. And that's because I just want to help people learn that there is a different way of doing things.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment, and there's a lot in what you said there that we'll be kind of delving into. I think one of the things I kind of want to start with is in these experiences that you've had, and you covered the gamut. Like you've worked at the professional level, from youth level, and so even at the professional level, you probably have seen very talented people come up who were missing something that probably could have been tied back to some of those earlier experiences. Am I right on that? Is that, you kind of see that
100%.
that you want to talk a little bit
100%.
about what some of those things were that you saw that came up later on, that if maybe if things had been different when they were younger, it could have changed the trajectory of things.
Yeah, it just be there. Like I said earlier, their self-esteem gets damaged, and you don't know that till later. You don't realize it as a young kid, but as you grow, you start questioning your judgment. You start questioning um, your abilities, and that is a negative feeling because that happened at a younger age. And then some kids that I've worked with were able to work through that by identifying their character defects that were built into them at a younger age. But the majority of them don't. They either quit or they're frustrated because they're trying to please their parents. And it's really hard to do when your parents are not open to um, development. They're more open into, getting exposed and, trying to get into this major college and all that. Those things will take care of themselves if you build a product. It's kind of like I use the example of growing roses. If you ever grown roses, okay, you have to create the soil, you have to plant the bulb, and then you have to fertilize it, you have to water it, you have to trim it, and then you have to give it lots and lots of love. Okay. And if you do that over a period of time, when it becomes a rose, it's an absolutely beautiful thing to see. But through that process, there's so many things you can do to damage that. It'll still grow, but it won't be as pretty as you would like it to be because you skipped steps, you neglected things, you didn't pay attention to the details of development. That's the key. I'm
Yeah.
developing a young man through the great game of baseball. I'm not developing a major league player.
Yeah, I love the fact that you use that almost the same metaphor I do. In fact, the keynote I use a lot is planting possibility, and I use the whole metaphor of a garden and all that because it is such a it's a great metaphor. We got the weeds of life will come in, and if we aren't constantly weeding our garden and cultivating it and caring for it, the weeds will choke out all the beauty, all the wonderful aspects of it. And it's not just related to sports. How about there's a father I know who he was actually one of the very first athletes I worked with a number of years ago, and he was in college at the time, and in his own words, was just average. Right? He just said I was just average, and his coach knew that. He's like, average. He really should be pitching at our state's Division I school, but he just didn't think he was good enough. And we could kind of trace it back. I don't know 100% how the belief formed. I have some sneaking suspicions, but the belief was a kid from a small rural town won't be good enough because he doesn't have the same opportunities. He doesn't have all the same benefits as somebody from away. And in the work I did with him, my hunch was his father, as cared, wanted his son to be the best, and was constantly coaching, but he was little things that parents don't often know, like, oh, don't let them get in your head. Oh, don't let those people from the big city think they're better than you. And what's getting heard is things like big city are better than me. Oh, they're getting in my head. And unconsciously, when he's now at college, he self destructs. He's not performing up to par because that little belief is getting in the way. And when we discovered that and we showed him how to remove it, the last 2 years of his college career, he didn't lose a game. He was a pitcher and he got to play professional baseball for 3 years. And that experience changed the trajectory of his life. But the lesson isn't about what it did for him athletically. It's the fact that understanding all those things that go into who we are and our self identity impacts everything, everything. And, you know,
Mhm.
parents, we want the best. And I'm going to get to my question here in a moment. we want we want the best for our kids, and we often, I know many, they think they need to be tough on them in order to build the resilience. You need to be hard on them to show them that life isn't easy and you're going to build up that toughness. And there's an element of truth to that that gets twisted, I think, and misunderstood, and it can have a real detrimental impact on kids. Do you want to kind of how you approach that with parents who really believe that they need to push, push,
Mhm.
push in order for their kid to get tougher?
Right. Well, there's a big difference in pushing somebody versus holding somebody accountable. Accountability is something you build into the guidelines of how you're going to develop your son. You're going to be accountable for your commitment. You signed up for this team, and quitting is not an option unless there's something unethically being done to you. Other than that, it's about accountability. And that's how you build. You don't pounding on somebody and holding or making them feel that you have to be tough is putting fear into them. And once fear is inside of you, then you go about things a different way. And the last thing you want is an athlete playing the game of baseball with fear versus being accountable. Am I on time? Do I have my equipment? Am I prepared? Am I ready to go do my uh, responsibility on the field? And I tell kids all the time, if you come to the ballpark and you're prepared and you give 100% of your best effort, and only you know what your best effort is. I don't. I can only help you try to get to your best effort. And if you do that and the scoreboard is not in your favor, you have not failed because you gave 100% of your best effort. And so that builds confidence that I did everything right. I was on time. I gave 100%. And unfortunately, we didn't win today. But making somebody tougher has nothing to do with it. Holding them accountable will make them tougher because they're not following through on the things that they said they were going to do. And I've learned that over this time. It's all about accountability. Tell me what you're going to do, and let's agree upon it. And then you, excuse me, you own it from here. You own what you signed up for. And I don't need to make you tough. I need to provide love and encouragement and provide opportunities for you. That's my job as a parent, to provide unconditional love, provide opportunities, meaning, well, I can take you to this guy for some mental training or this guy for hitting. I can provide, but you have to be accountable for the time and effort that you put into it.
Yeah, accountability is huge, and I talk a lot about the importance of empowerment teams, and families should really be the ultimate empowerment team where we are trying to empower everybody in our family to get better. Right? It's a journey. We're trying to help each other, hold each other accountable, um, and that is different than that uh, lack of better terminology, I guess, is that drill instructor mentality of just kind of hammering something in. There's a real fine line between taking things to the extreme because you're talking. I think the way and I think you said this in your book, it's when you as a parent are delivering a message, intentionally or not, that their worth is tied to their statistics or their outcome, their, the performance. That's when you begin to like really kind of cross that line. They should always be understanding that it's about effort and growth and the process, not the outcome. Uh, how do you how do you try to help parents understand that subtle difference?
Well, you have to give them examples, and when I speak publicly, I just talk about how I raised my son. Okay, because I had no guidelines. My dad was not really involved in my baseball. I don't know how I learned it. I think God put it on my heart to just try this way. And so my son and I would agree on you're going to be on this team, and you're signed up for the duration of it. Let's say I remember he was like 10, and I'm not involved. I'm not going to talk to your coach. I'm not involved in anything other than making sure you're there on time, and that everything else is up to you. And regardless of the outcome, whether he had a terrible game or not, um, the ride home was fun. He'd get in the car and I'd look at him, he'd look at me, and he knew that he'd struck out 3 times, maybe threw the ball over the first baseman's head. And the first thing I would say to him, I said, "Hey, let's go get an ice cream." And he'd be like, "Oh, okay." And we would go get an ice cream. And we would not talk about the game, okay, unless he brought it up. But the rule we had was the next day when he came home from school, that we would talk for about half an hour and he would explain to me what he did did what he did wrong or what he felt he needed to work on, and then we would agree on that and we'd go work on it, and that would be it, because he didn't have to feel like he was trying to please me, because there was no fear. And people get in the car, these kids have told me 100 times the ride home was the most painful thing I've ever experienced, and that sits in them forever. And I'm trying to teach parents that one word that you say can really make a difference in that child's thought and behavior. My son will tell you um, that he's a very successful entrepreneur. He owns 4 or 5 coffee shops up in San Francisco. And I've heard him speak to people. He goes, "Everything I've learned about business, I learned through baseball. I learned to be on time. I learned that my shoes had to be shined. I had to have my belt centered. I had to have my equipment organized, and I had to treat others the way I like to be treated and be part of a team." And that's all applicable to life today and how I run my business. And I think it's all in how I think parents really need to look at the odds on really what their child could end up doing. The odds of them being an entrepreneur are way higher than it being a major league player. And so, why don't we build the character in that? You're guaranteed. Um, what was this guy told me? He says you're 100. The odds of becoming a major league player are incredibly small, but the odds of baseball shaping a young person's character are 100%. So I'll take the 100% that I'm going to build character in my son, and because he's going to raise a family, he's going to get a lawnmower, he's going to have a dog, he's going to have a business. So what kind of character does he want to carry as he goes through life? That's a 100% guaranteed if you do it in a way that's not fear-based or pressure-based or performance-based. And it's crazy nowadays. 8 years old, you go on Perfect Game and all their stats are there. How many at bats? I mean, I get parents call me all the time when I was training. My kid's batting 800 and 4 home runs. And I asked the simple question, how old is he? Oh, he's 8 years old. And we play on a team in Texas. And sometimes they fly us to Arizona. And I said, why are you here to see me? I can't help you. And I turned them away. Well, I thought you hitting lessons. Yeah, I do. But it seems like you already have it all figured out.
Yeah,
So,
that's that opens up an area I did want to kind of talk to you about because you and I both
excuse me.
agree that to us, I think baseball is one of the great sports to have kids play because there's adversity in baseball is built into the game, right? Hitting a baseball is really hard, and you don't do it very successfully very often. And we learn in life a lot more through our failures than we do through successes. It's kind of the nature of learning and growth. So baseball is a great avenue for teaching how to deal with adversity, how to deal with failure. And in baseball, there's no hiding. Like when you are up to the plate, the spotlight's on you, right? There's no hiding. When you're the guy on the mound, the spotlight's on you, and it's on you for an extended period of time, and that's a great place to really begin to teach some of these things we're talking about, some of the character things. Can you talk about how you go about trying to use those moments to shape the character of resilience and perseverance and all those things that we've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the accountability. I mean, if you really believe in what you commit to, and over time, you're going to build your character because you're accomplishing the things that you committed to. You're not committed to batting 400. You're not, those are things that are out of your control. We try to focus on the things that we can control, our behavior, our attitude. So I try to teach kids only focus on the things that you have control of. You can't control the umpire, you can't control the weather, you can't control the batter's box because it's got a hole in it. So quit worrying about things that are outside your control because all you're doing is putting pollution into your brain. You're polluting all this information in your head that you have no control over. And when you focus on the things that you really have control over and you really understand them and your parents teach you the difference of what you can control and not control, then it becomes a lot easier because I can focus only on the things that I have control of. And that helps me build character. And I use one example. I was very blessed to be able to train a very high profile player. His name Brandon Crawford, played for the San Francisco Giants, 3 World Series, 5 Gold Gloves. He just retired 2 years ago. But I met Brandon when he was 13, and we just started working together doing hitting lessons. And then he went on to high school that was close to my area, and I was a volunteered assistant because he and I had developed a relationship. And here's what I tell people all the time. When he got to high school, he was the quarterback on the football team. He was a starting guard on the basketball team. He played varsity baseball as a freshman at a very powerful profile school where not many freshmen have ever played there. He was a 4.0 student, and on the weekends he would go over to the VA hospital in the morning and bring the newspaper and pour coffee for some of the guys that are in the VA hospital. Nobody told him to do that. It was just something he felt to give back. Um, and he went on to be a very, very high profile player. And the reason I share that story is because he didn't isolate into one thing. He did everything because you can't do it over again. You can't go back and say, boy, I wish I would have played football or I wish I would have played basketball. He focused on what was in front of him and he took advantage of all three. Now, when he became a junior in high school, he and I talked and he goes, you know what? I think baseball is something I really think I want to pursue. And uh, I'm getting a lot of people interested in me. What do you think? I said, whatever your dream is, let's do it. So we pared back all the other things. His senior year, he only focused on baseball. And he had 4 major schools: Georgia Tech, Cal, Berkeley, Stanford, UC Irvine, and UCLA, the 4 schools, UCLA. And here's the process. He's living in Palo Alto, California. He said to me, Georgia Tech's too far for my parents to come and my family. I'm not really happy about Cal Berkeley because there's a lot of distractions there with politics and all the liberals. And this is him telling me this. He said Stanford's too close to my dad, and UCLA's where I want to go. The minute he signed his letter of intent to UCLA, his dad bought an apartment at UCLA in LA. because his name was Mike, and I used to call him Iron Mike because he was always push, 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 and I'd have to coach his dad. No, it's not going to work. Let me take care of this. My point was that um, he didn't leave anything off the table. He did everything the way he was supposed to do it, and I never thought he would play in the big leagues, ever, ever. It's that crazy how it works. So
Yeah.
diversifying builds character. It also is builds accountability because you're in multiple things. You learn more about different cultures. You're around different kind of teaching. You're learning different things in life, different skills in baseball when you're playing football or basketball. And then being of service is a way to give back. And every time you give back, I don't know how it works, but you always 10 things come your way. I know
Uh,
that from my own experience.
yeah, 100%. I've talked to so many people who've had that same experience. It's a law of the universe, I think, that's operating there. You know, earlier you mentioned a little bit about the travel sports thing, and you just mentioned with Brandon the multi-sport aspect. And I've talked to numerous college coaches who would love to see more three-sport athletes because it develops so many different skills, and they're seeing that fewer and fewer. And now we're beginning to see with travel baseball, and not just baseball, you see it in basketball and soccer, where kids are beginning to train year round at very young ages for one sport. And there's, you know, I understood when travel baseball was really about trying to go to college showcases and stuff so that these, um, sophomores, juniors in high school might be able to get noticed more. I can see it from a college coach's standpoint. Oh, all these teams are coming to one location. I can see a whole bunch of people instead of having to travel all over. So I kind of understood the whole business market of it. But then it began to
Mhm.
trickle down, as you said, like a perfect game where they'll have some national tournament for 8-year-olds. And I just, I don't know. I'm not sure how to get through sometimes to parents and like why? Like what are you trying to accomplish at 8 years old by trying to do all these national tournaments? And I've told this story I think on my show before. There was a guy I knew who played in the men's baseball league with me, who was a coach. His sons were very good baseball players. He had played at the University of Maine, and the Cooperstown experience in New York for is a from what I've heard, even he said, "Oh, it's a fabulous experience." But he was also flabbergasted by his team from Maine, who was going there to have an experience of playing some other teams from further away and have some fun. Played a team from California that played 162 games as 12-year-olds. And he was just like, he couldn't understand. He's like, there's something wrong with that. Like pros play 162 games. They talk of that being a marathon, and you've got 12-year-olds. So I guess my question is how do we communicate to parents this balance of wanting to develop your child by playing better competition and all that, but also
Mhm.
the importance of local community and local youth leagues and the value in that. How do we kind of talk about that with parents who get caught up in this, the whole gotta gotta get them into the best.
Like we could do a podcast. I don't know if you know this, but I was the director of All Star Village in Cooperstown for 3 years
I
before the
didn't know that.
Ripkins bought it. Oh yeah, I ran the whole complex, and the stuff that I dealt with would make you sick to your stomach. The cheating, the falsifying of birth certificates, flying guys in on Thursday night to pitch the championship game and don't even know the kid's name. Okay. I mean, that's just a touch of what I experienced. Just a touch. I had to throw more coaches out week after. There's 12 consecutive weeks of 50 teams from all around the country. They come in on Friday night. They get all their equipment Saturday, big parade. Then they play 7 games, and then it goes into single elimination. And what these people would do to cheat, to try to win, and manipulate umpires, I could go on for hours about what I experienced. My point is, why would you not want a child to experience youth life? Okay, he can play golf, he could play baseball, basketball, he could go in a bowling league, he could play ping pong. Why would you take that experience away? Because when you get to be a little bit older, you can't do that. You've already passed that window. So the more things you can do are going to really build the self-esteem, the confidence, and to be able to say, "Wow, I did that. Oh, wow, that was cool. Yeah, I got to go on this trip and play in a basketball tournament." But what happens is we go through life thinking we're going to only do one thing, and by the time we figure it out, we've already passed that window of opportunity. I think kids should play as many sports as they could or can, be involved in any kind of group activities, whether it's Boy Scouts, whether it's club events. Why wouldn't you? But it's not that. What happens is parents turn this into a business, okay, versus an experience. The parents are investing all this money, traveling all around the country to try to showcase their child, and nobody's paying attention to it. I, I don't know a scout that's interested in anybody in travel ball until they get into probably their sophomore, junior year of high school. Then we start sniffing around. But other than that, I don't care. I mean, I love that you did it, but I don't care how many trophies you got or rings. That's great, but that's not going to do anything for you long term. That's just an experience that you got to enjoy. But if you can do multiple things and say, yeah, I did that, I did that, I did that, then when it's time to really make a decision, you have all that experience in you because you diversified your life around being a child. It's crazy how people just skip so many things
Yeah.
thinking that this is the golden ticket. And less than, what is it, 2.3, 2 point, yeah, 2.3% of all the kids go on to play high school baseball. 2.3%. High school. Now, but what happens to the rest of them? Well, it depends on how they were raised and what character and what did they learn will lead them into their next endeavor in life. But other than that, you have to look at the odds. And I'm not saying you give up. I'm just saying what's important. You know, my favorite mentor that I've ever experienced in my life is Lou Holtz. You know, he just passed away. And he talks about the word win, W-I-N. I'll never forget when I met him at South Bend. I never forget listening to him talk. The word win stands for what's important now. So if you focus on what's important now, like today, and you continue to follow that method, you're going to always be a winner. But if you're always focused on things that you think you want to do versus what you really can do, you're just going to keep wasting time. It's like,
Yeah.
I can't explain it any easier.
Yeah. No, I,
He had a huge impact.
when I was coaching my sons and their friends, and they'll tell you today is that they can still remember the lesson I always taught it, and the teams I coached and helped coach when I wasn't always a head coach, we had a pretty good record of like having some really dramatic comebacks, and part of that was because our focus always was, whether it was basketball, soccer, baseball. Baseball was one pitch at a time, just one pitch. If you don't think that you can on this pitch get a hit, what are you doing? Like, how many of you think on this pitch you could possibly get a hit? It's like, well, yeah, of course I could. I might be able to. That's our focus in basketball. One possession at a time, right? When you break it down into that and you begin to separate the extraneous, then good things can just compile and they can build and momentum, all those kind of things. But they'll tell you that they've understood how that can apply to real life, right? I have today, like I got to worry about the things I can control, which you also mentioned now, and doesn't mean you don't goal set, doesn't mean any of that, but I can't be thinking about all those things. I got to focus on now, and that I bet your son probably understands that from being an entrepreneur, right? In the business, I set goals, I build my plans, but I need to focus on now, and
What's
sports are a great
what's
way to,
important now?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You talk about it in life is one day at a time. That's it. You only
yeah,
get today. There's
yeah,
nothing guaranteed after today, but you can learn from your past and hopefully that you don't spend time on that one day that you have wasting it. So what's important now? Today, for me, what's important now is, to enjoy this day, share with Chuck on a podcast. That's what's important to me now. When this is done, then I look at what's important for the rest of the day. But I'm not going to spend any time on things I can't control. I can't do anything about it. It's just going to eat me up. And that's what, if you watch the World Baseball Classic that's been on the last couple nights, those are the best players in the world. And you watch the enthusiasm and the
yeah,
jumping up and down and the crying and the hugging. That is that is real. That's not fake. And those are grown men, okay, that all went through this process of learning. But I can tell you that the number of guys that I've been able to be around and coach that went on to play at the big league level, they went through plenty of failure. That's what made them stronger. But their character kept building because they weren't their self-esteem and their confidence weren't continuously crushed. And that's what I talk about in the book. It, you have no idea what one or two words can do to an 8 or 9 year old. He may not react to it today, but he'll remember it later because it impacted his self-esteem. He might feel small when he shouldn't
yeah,
feel small because of what you said. And words are powerful.
yeah,
And parents, I've seen I've seen way more kids get crushed than I've seen developed. And it's all because of the pressure on performance. No, the goal should be development. How do I develop a great young man to be accountable for his decisions he makes? You decide.
yeah. That's
I don't
it's
I don't tell you.
the winning will take care of itself if we focus on just trying to do our job to the best of our ability, understand our role is, support each other in that process, and then we'll let the outcome take care of itself. It's like I say, you're going to make mistakes. That's inevitable. Like we cannot practice. No matter how much we practice, you're still going to end up making a mistake at some point. The question will be, how do you respond to it, and how well do we do at minimizing those compared to the opponents? And when we do those things, good things happen, and that's the same with life. It's those are the kind of lessons that can be taught even on a car ride home. Right with the parents and that conversations. Uh, we
That's
are we are coming towards the end of our
yeah.
time. I still had a few things I wanted to kind of cover with you. There's one thing in your book, and I've been my youngest son, who's kind of works with me, but he just got the head coaching job at his high school that he played at, and he had been an assistant coach the last couple of years, and the head coach stepped away, and the program when he played and before had it's a very good program. There was a long history of success, and um, pride in the program, and it fell apart. It's like none of it exists. And he and I have been talking about culture and changing the culture of the program. He said, Dad, like the kids would show up, and when he practiced and played, from he would see the older guys, but they would show up with their practice jerseys and uniforms and dressed right, and just there was a pride in every little thing that they did, and all that was gone. And he's like, it's sad to see that. And he goes, there's no youth feeder program anymore. It's gone. And we were talking about building culture, and you talk about that in your book. So I want to end with your words of wisdom about how you go about creating that culture and how you work with parents to help create a culture that is about the individual players and their development, not necessarily the stats and the wins and all those things, even though that comes, but it.
It's, no, it's unconditional support, and you have to really understand as a parent what that means. Unconditional support. Um, you have to make the ride home safe. We're talking about youth athletes who don't drive yet. That has to be safe. It can't be a fear-based ride home, and you have to learn how to control that. That's going to build the culture that you're trying to build. Um, you have to be focused on development versus stats and pressure, focused on the character. I'm trying to build character in my son or my daughter. And any parent knows what character is. That's really what you're trying to build. And keeping the joy and the love for the game. I mean, it should be fun to go to the ballpark. It shouldn't be a chore. It should be an enjoyment. But parents really need to understand that, they have a handful of roles. Provide opportunities because they can. I can pay for this. I can take you somewhere. Here's an opportunity for you to learn and make it fun and safe, regardless of the outcome, and teach them accountability and how to focus on the things that you can control. I can't control things. Why am I talking about them and spending time on them? I can't control that my coach is being an idiot to me. I have a choice to play it out because I'm not quitting and learn from it. And maybe next team we interview the coach and we get a little better understanding versus just signing up because they have cool uniforms and they're going to Cooperstown in August. Well, that's great, but what is the experience going to be like? Because I'm not comfortable unless I'm in an environment that I'm building character. And that's the $6,400,000 question. Love, provide love and support and hold them accountable. But first define what accountability is to your son or your daughter and let them create the boundaries. Let them create what that means. And then you can help alter it. But after that, they have to own it. You
Yeah.
can't micromanage them.
Yeah, it's the second time you've said the word "own it," and that's so important on many different levels. And again, part of my keynote that I give even before some of the sports programs I do, that initial part, I talk about sow possibility or becoming a sower, and what each letter stands for, the S stands for you need to identify the seeds of the story you tell yourself, right? What are all those labels and beliefs and all that are going into the story you're telling yourself? Once you identify them, you have to own them because you can't weed them out, the ones that you don't want in that story, the ones you want to edit out. You can't do that until you take ownership of it. And then the W is the weeding it out. And then if you want to become a sower of possibility, you really need to build empowerment teams to help hold you accountable, to push you along, to hopefully help each other, right? You're all kind of supporting each other. And then you got to create rituals in your life. And that's something we didn't really get to because you mentioned the importance of rituals too and that ride home. Um, but all those things are, it's it's things people can learn to do, and that doing those can build resiliency. It can, if you're a young person, if you're an adult, and you're still holding on to some of those bad experiences, there's we can show you how to like overcome those, because I have worked and talked with adults who, as you said, right, those experiences from like youth sports carried with them, and they have shied away from having their child get involved in youth sports because of their memory of car ride home, or that coach who was just, you know, too focused on the wrong things and turned it into a bad experience. Um, so, anyways, it's been it's a we could go on and on. I know about talking about all these things because in the end, youth sports are an incredibly powerful way of shaping character. So I'm going to give you a chance here to uh, any final words of wisdom for parents who might be listening, how they can get your book, and if they want to hear anything more about what you're doing or up to, how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, no, I have an author's website. It's called readpaulbenzer.com. So that's a website that has a lot of history about me and why I wrote the book. And there you can click on there. The books are there, and it's on Amazon. Um, but if you can't afford a book, then send me an email and I'll send you one, because it's, like I said, I didn't write this to make money. And I just think the more I can get it out, the better. I'm trying to approach youth, middle schools and people like that, to do a parent evening and with coaches and parents on this whole experience that you and I've been talking about a lot deeper. Um, and I think that's a way for me to give back to the game. So, um, um, read Paul Benzer. Um, what is it? Yeah, readpaulbenzer.com is my author's webpage. But no, I think the biggest takeaway is, if you're building character and accountability of your son or your daughter, that's should be the goal, whether it's through sports or any other activity. But if you're focused on how many tournaments you can go to and all that, you're actually, I'm sorry to say, but you're just wasting your money, and you're wasting your time, and you're wasting that young athlete's experience, because he should be doing multiple things. You know, I heard a story last night, real quick, about a 10-year-old parent who has a real stud daughter who plays softball. And the coach says, make sure you're there on Sunday at 10. We have a big semifinal game. And he says, I won't be there at 10. I'm going to church. My family goes to church on Sunday. So when we're done with church, if the game's not over, we'll be there. We're going to fulfill our commitment, but it's not going to interfere with our lifestyle. And it was pretty amazing how he said it. He just said, 10 o'clock Sunday. No, I'll be at church. And the coach was just livid. He was like, you're kidding me.
Yeah,
So it comes down to what your priorities are.
yeah.
And
Well,
so,
thank you for writing the book. Thank you for sharing your time. It's all really important things, and I'll have you back on the show some other time, and
yeah,
we can keep talking about youth sports and travel ball and all some of these other things too. So I appreciate you taking the time out. Well, I hope you all got a lot out of this. I know I do love having the conversation with Coach Bucket, and as you've heard me say over and over, it really is about mindset of parents and how that can influence mindset of youth, but also learning to help youth take control of their own mindset, because inevitably parents, I know I haven't always done things the way I probably should have, but I can help and have my own children, as they become adults, understand how to take control of their mindset, their beliefs, and all these things that play out. And that's one of the reasons for the mentorship that I've started, is to help parents and children, teenagers, begin to um, really be able to learn how to master their mindset. So I would encourage you to go to the Champions Mindset Mentorship and take a look at the information there and schedule a call with me to learn more. If you might be interested, it's application only. We only take a few people, but it's a great opportunity for the right family. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out and live life to its fullest.